Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box, but I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope, and I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Some big news in the world of sports betting and allegations surrounding several former college basketball players involved in a potential shaving in terms of points during games. We're going to get to that here in just a minute. This is breaking news in the last hour, so stay with us for that story. Also, we'll break down the latest in the Miami Hurricanes' pursuit for a college football national championship. Duke Johnson, former running back, will join us here on the show. Dan Fates from ABC in Buffalo has the latest on the Bills' pursuit of an AFC championship. With a win, they would get there this week. Paul Stone will give his picks and weigh in on everything happening in the college football playoff as well. That and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. We're action-packed. Got lots of college basketball, NBA to get to as well. Gilbert McGregor, who covers the Phoenix Suns, will also weigh in on the NBA as well. But as I mentioned, let's get to our top story of the day. This is a very big one, national story. All-American former of college hoops, Antonio Blakeney, is among 17 basketball players that's been named in a college basketball point shaving scheme that fixed games in college hoops. And by the way, also in the Chinese Basketball Association and rigging bets, according to an indictment unsealed Thursday in Philadelphia. In fact, a very large wager placed on a Chinese basketball game apparently in this indictment of over $150,000, which alerted authorities. The FBI began investigating this. It began in September of 2022, ran through February of 2025. There's 20 defendants being named in the indictment, several college basketball players, several schools involved as well in those games, including LaSalle and Towson, not necessarily those schools, but again, the outcomes of those games, first halves as well. It's a very long indictment that has just been released. And of course, we'll talk more about this as the show goes on today and more on the show with Sam McQuillan of Legal Sports Report on tomorrow's show as well. Dustin Gawker, if you read his Substack, you may have found out this morning that FanDuel Predicts has just expanded from 5 to 18 states. California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia coming soon nationwide. FanDuel Predicts is expanding their reach across the country. Also, college athletes involved in playing games don't want to be involved in any prediction markets. The NCAA has asked a federal regulatory body on Wednesday to stop prediction markets from offering trades on college sports until more safeguards are in place, basically saving their athletes from this, and also saving, of course, the schools from having to be potentially involved in any future allegations. Very important because there are no safeguards in place, very similar to the one that we found out earlier today. Prediction markets don't have any of this. Okay, so we thought maybe we'd be leading off with the National Football League and the new head coach of the New York Giants, but with so many other stories, we got it in at 12:05 Eastern. John Harbaugh's headed to the Big Apple. He interviewed with the Giants. He's going to be among the highest paid coaches in the history of the NFL, and they didn't let him leave the building. I guess that's what happened here. And Harbaugh will be announced at some point later this week. He has not confirmed or denied anything. Also, Todd Monken, his offensive coordinator, apparently going to be going with him to New York. Also, a surprise from college football. Dante Moore was expected to be in the top 5 picks in college football. The Oregon quarterback, he has elected not to enter the NFL draft. Looks like he'll take some more NIL money. Also, no word on transfer Dylan Raiola, where he may end up going. He left Nebraska, committed to Oregon, so of course he's going to have to go somewhere else as well. In terms of the National Football League actual playoff games this week, Fred Warner says that he would like to play this week against the Seahawks. He's missed the majority of the season with an injury. He's been on IR. They opened up their practice window. Could he actually play for the 49ers this weekend? We'll wait and see. Art Rooney II, the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, said that the team will not entertain the idea of a rebuild, even with Mike Tomlin stepping down. And Adam Thielen, speaking of which, who played with the Steelers at the end of the season, says he's calling it quits. He's retiring from the National Football League. Last night in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers needed a win badly. They got one in a blowout, 133-107. Donovan Mitchell had 35 points. Cavs win. We'll keep an eye on Darius Garland. He left with a toe injury. It's been bothering him all season long. Head coach Kenny Atkinson after the game yesterday saying that the Cavs have been struggling. They really needed that big win last night.
Yeah, we needed to respond. That was a tough loss against Utah. Shows the character of our team. Challenge them before the game. How we're going to respond after that loss. And it wasn't just a win, but how we played. 41 assists on 50 made baskets, I think. It was kind of Cavs basketball, the way we moved it. And then defensively we were good. J.A. and, Evan started it and executed the game plan. I thought Don was great tonight. They were collapsing the paint in the first half, and he was spraying it out. When he distributes like that, we're tough to stop. Then in the second half, it opened up a little, and he was in their paint all night. So I think he set the tone.
What was different for DeAndre tonight?
Yeah, he's home. I don't know, home cooking. I don't know. He was really good. And when he plays like that, we're tough to beat.
Meanwhile, the New York Knicks' good vibes after one win is now gone again. Jalen Brunson left with an ankle injury against the Sacramento Kings. You would think maybe the Knicks could beat them anyway, but they did not. Sacramento wins 112-101. Knicks were 11.5-point favorites in the game, and a very upset Mike Brown afterwards, chastising the defensive effort.
Especially our one-on-one defense was non-existent tonight because all we did was foul and send it to the free throw line. So, tough night. We got to get ready for a tough one tomorrow, but we cannot play the way we played today. This is one of the worst, if not the worst, that I've seen us play the entire year in terms of following a game plan and keeping the game simple.
Mike, when Jalen obviously leaves the game in the first quarter, just what did you see from how your team responded? What happened after that?
Well, we didn't respond. We didn't respond at all. I mean, I got to give the Kings credit because they took it to us, and we didn't respond in any way, shape, or form. But even before Jalen got hurt, we weren't following the game plan, and I'm not sure why, but we just kind of were out there, just going through the motions. And if you go through the motions in this league, it doesn't matter. You're gonna get your behind kicked, and we got our behind kicked.
Kawhi Leonard's resurgence continuing last night. Clippers beat the Washington Wizards 119-105, covering the big spread. Kawhi Leonard, 33 points, had a big fourth quarter as well. Ty Lue can't say enough about that effort.
Every night's tough. Every night's tough. The style of play that's now in the league. playing fast, playing with pace, getting to the next actions, sprinting the screen, slipping out, so, every night we got to be prepared. And, our young guy stepped up, Jordan Miller again. I thought Jan was really good. And so just coming off the bench to give us that energy we needed, I thought was huge for us tonight. Especially when we didn't think we had a lot in the tank. I thought Kawhi was a little slow, James a little slow, KD as well. So for our bench to come in and play the way they did, it was huge for us, and Nico as well.
Right now, the Denver Nuggets are playing some of their best basketball and doing it without Nikola Jokic. The Nuggets beat the Mavericks 118-109. Jamal Murray had 33 points and 5 assists. In college basketball last night, a blowout for Duke. Not a surprise. They beat Cal 71-56. Out west in Berkeley, number 17 Arkansas defeats South Carolina, also in a blowout for John Calipari, 108-74. And Michigan wins yet again, 82-72 over Washington. The Wolverines are ranked 4th in the country and certainly will be one of the favorites to go far in the upcoming NCAA tournament. In Major League Baseball, we did have one offseason move. The hot stove is trickling a little bit. Maybe we'll get more news today. We'll see. Ranger Suarez, formerly now with the Philadelphia Phillies, signs a 5-year, $130 million contract. He will pitch in Fenway Park this season for the Boston Red Sox. Coming up next, Gilbert McGregor joins us of Phoenix Sports to go over the latest in the National Basketball Association. Stay on the grid. We'll recap some of the games and preview tonight as well after the break.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always great to catch up with Gilbert McGregor from Phoenix Sports. He covers the Suns, and of course his Suns went down to my Miami Heat the other night. That's a story for another day there. Not a very close game. I did see one of the Suns players yelling at the fans in Miami too. Was it Brooks? I think it was going.
Probably.
I don't. Even, yeah, I saw that. Somebody sent me that actually on the sidelines. I'm like, I don't know anything about it, but. A story for another day, because we're going to move on to some of the recaps from last night, Gilbert. And let's start off with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who certainly are not having the season thus far that they thought they would have. The playoffs will come. Maybe they will turn it up. Donovan Mitchell last night had one of his best games in a while, 35 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and also made 5 threes in their win against a very good Philadelphia team. So maybe this is the spark that the Cavs need for the second half of the season.
It should be. Maybe it is. I think the thing about that with the Cavs and the 76ers are two teams who have been up and down in various ways for different reasons. The Sixers, obviously, their injury issues, which is a yearly thing with them. But, it's one thing for the Cavs, similar to shooters who are in a slump, right? You see one go through and things start to work out for you. Maybe the Cavs start stringing together some wins here to start off the new year or the new calendar year. And that gives them the momentum. They're fortunate, and that's something we've talked about a lot. The Eastern Conference is a conference where there isn't really a real favorite outside of Detroit Pistons right now. The Knicks are up and down. A lot of other teams in the Eastern Conference are up and down. So the Cavs have some time. They afforded themselves some time being in the Eastern Conference to figure it out, and maybe last night would be the right step toward the right direction.
Meanwhile, the Knicks today are going to wait the situation with Jalen Brunson. He was hurt yesterday. I know they play again tonight. So, the Knicks still, Gilbert probably should beat the Kings without him, but they did not last night. And so that's going to be a tough loss. And certainly I would not expect to see Brunson play tonight either. So I guess I would ask you about the Knicks, this little slump that they're in. I know they got to win the other day, but it feels like we're going 2-3 weeks here. Knicks will get it going though, right?
You would think so, right? It's an extended slump, and obviously it started right around Christmas time. And it's one of those things you feel like you take one step forward and you take 3 or 4 back, and that Josh Hart was back in the lineup earlier this week, and they had struggled without Josh Hart. But as soon as you get him back, Jalen Brunson leaves after playing one full game with Josh Hart. And, big fan of Mikal Bridges. I think he's a big fan favorite around here in the Valley as well. But any night where he's taking 20 shots and only making 6 of them, probably not going to be a good game for the team involved or the team that he's playing for. So, the Knicks are probably going to have to figure some things out. Obviously, also a little bit of a revenge game for the Kings going against Mike Brown. And the Kings have played a little bit better as of late. They're still a lowly Kings, but gotten a couple wins this past week over the Lakers and Rockets, and now the Knicks. So it's just a reminder that you cannot overlook any opponent in this league.
No, and the East, by the way, seemingly still wide open. I understand that New York and Detroit are probably the 2 best teams thus far, but Boston, Cleveland, still right there. Magic, who knows, maybe they go on a roll. Philadelphia, and then Miami, who started off the season a little bit in better shape, has sort of come back a little bit, although, as I mentioned, they did beat Phoenix the other day. Okay, so now let's get to some games today, and I should say today because they're playing in Berlin, the Memphis Grizzlies and Orlando Magic. How about this one? A 2 p.m. Eastern game, Gilbert, so you'll have something to watch this afternoon. Certainly when you talk about Memphis at this point, all the discussion is surrounding Ja Morant, whether or not he will be dealt or not. The Magic are 5-point favorites in this game, total of 229.5. Gilbert, I got to tell you, seeing some of these trade proposals come in, not just from Miami and other places, it seems like Ja Morant's going to be given away by the Memphis Grizzlies. The teams are getting, I see expiring contracts, no draft picks whatsoever. What in the world has happened to Ja Morant?
Yeah, between his injuries and issues that have kind of impacted his role with the team and franchise and in the league, I think that his value has just kind of tanked a little bit. And it's a shame because of how spectacular of a player that he is when he's actually on the floor. Even this season, he's been impactful when on the floor, but it's pretty evident that things in Memphis aren't going very well. There's a lot of unrest within that team, which kind of lends itself into today. This team has been injured all year. Their injury list has just been extremely long all year. So it does make sense that the Magic are favored the way that they are. If you're thinking about some other things to get exotic with it, maybe, and you have the ability to do player props, this game is being played in Germany. So, Franz Wagner might have a big game in front of his home fans. Doesn't get very many opportunities to play in the country that he grew up in. Mo Wagner and Tristan da Silva are also the other 2 German players playing in this game. So it should be interesting. It should be a fun game, but I think the Magic are a more complete team at this point.
The Phoenix Suns, the team, Gilbert, you watch very closely, have been very good off a loss. At least you got that going for you tonight. They play the Pistons tonight. Detroit -6.5, total 223.5. Obviously, Detroit the better team of the 2. But what went wrong for the Suns the other day in Miami that they'll have to correct tonight?
They didn't come out ready to play in Miami. It was their first game of a 6-game road trip, and it looked like it. I don't know, South Beach might have gotten the best of them earlier this week as well because they were a little lethargic to start the game, and they clawed back after being trailing down by 20-plus in the second half. They came back and took the lead, but just did not have enough. But tonight's spread is pretty evident. Devin Booker, questionable. He sprained his ankle against the Heat earlier this week, so keep an eye on his ability, his status for the game. If he's able to play a guy who has roots in Michigan, I think he'll put together a nice performance, but it all depends on his availability tonight.
Interesting game tonight, I think, in Houston, because it felt like a statement needed to be made by the Thunder when they played the Spurs last time out, and they did, Gilbert. They absolutely crushed them. So I guess the bigger question is a letdown tonight involved in this game against Houston? Oklahoma City's 4.5-point favorites, total 225.5. The Rockets are among the top teams in the NBA, but certainly this is a short line for Oklahoma City. What do I mean by that? Generally speaking, Gilbert, as you know, they're almost never just 4 points or 4.5-point favorites over anyone. What do you make of this matchup tonight?
I think the road factor is definitely something that probably impacted that spread for Oklahoma City. But the Rockets are another team who have been struggling a little bit lately. They also lost to the Sacramento Kings and lost back-to-back to the Trailblazers. They're able to get back on track once they returned home from that road trip. But, I still think that the Thunder, especially making statements, I think that they've heard some outside noise about them struggling and not being necessarily as good as we crowned them as being. So I think that as they're playing against another one of the elite teams in the Western Conference, they'll be motivated to make a statement and then take advantage of the fact that the Rockets have been struggling lately. I like Oklahoma City tonight in this game just because of the factors and the trajectory of these teams recently.
Gilbert, great stuff as always. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up again next week here on NewsWire and dive into some more NBA, getting closer to that All-Star break, Fast and Furious here in February. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, Gilbert McGregor joining us from Phoenix Sports, covering the Suns. Best Suns coverage out there, folks. If you're watching in the land of the desert, make sure you give him a follow and head on over to the website as well. We'll be back with the Sports Grid Sound Off right after this.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brown due to his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great NFL matchups coming up this week, Saturday and Sunday. Wow, huge showdowns. We'll have them all covered for you, by the way, here on SportsGrid. So let's get to it, get some previews in. We'll hear from the head coaches of the Broncos, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Bears in the SportsGrid Sound Off. Generally speaking, Bills did not have much of an issue with the Denver Broncos last year in the playoffs, but the stage is set for a rematch coming up Saturday afternoon. This one will be at Mile High in Denver. Sean Payton, no stranger to the playoffs or even the Super Bowl as well, discussed the showdown and the rematch against Buffalo in his media session this week.
Well, look, we were looking to improve our team, and man, we knew we were playing a real good team a year ago, and so there were a lot of things that that we felt coming away from a game like that, hey, we're not there yet, but we need to improve. Certainly those are players that help us in that regard, but we're playing the number one rushing team in football, and it's the runner, it's the scheme. They're very well coached. I mean, 3 or 4 of the offensive coaches were on my staff in New Orleans that are there now and doing a great job. So we'll have to be ready.
Also, the Patriots, even though they are at home, are going to have to be ready for what? Best defense in the NFL going. No question about that. Houston Texans travel to take on the Patriots. That game is Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern. And so let's get a preview of this game on Sunday, guys, including Luke. Got to be aware of the direction I'm going here on the show. A little out of order. Mike Vrabel, we're going to hear from him on the top-ranked Texans defense.
Yeah, of course. They have great talent, great scheme. They play hard and respect how hard they play. And they're just not only talented, but they have a play demeanor that I can appreciate.
Mike, are they sort of a do-what-you-do defense? People have talked about the scheme is good, but it's just, this is...
Yeah, and again, there's not a whole... they don't, I guess, necessarily... maybe the volume isn't as much. I think the volume increases on third down, where you'll, maybe get some multiple looks and pressures and different things. But, I think we pretty much would have an idea of where they're going to be on first and second down. They'll mix in pressures, and then they match up, and then we'll get into the zone. But I think the volume probably comes more in on third down.
Now let's go from the AFC to the NFC and preview the game between Seattle and San Francisco, which is Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Seahawks, the number 1 seed, they're at home, but as Mike McDonald knows, facing the 49ers can't be taken lightly going into the game.
Really everybody playing good football, and that's what we've gotten. So, the challenge is keep it rolling and understand what the next iteration is of what we're trying to achieve and how they're trying to attack us, and off we go. Today we'll be doing some third down stuff out there, and be excited to see how it looks. Well, I felt like we were on our way as soon as training camp, OTAs. I felt like we were forging an identity in really all 3 phases, and when you're doing it against another team, that's kind of a reassuring sign. And then just what you see every day. It's not like we got to week 4 and we're like, oh, shoot, now we're going to be a complimentary team. No, I think it's something that we've been seeing signs of really since the beginning of the season or beginning of the spring.
Meanwhile, the Hall of Fame career of Matthew Stafford, does it come to an end this weekend? You never know. There's no question at this point that Stafford and the Rams have an opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl. But in order to do it, they got to go through Chicago. So here is Ben Johnson, the head coach of the Bears, on how to prepare for the Rams quarterback.
Yeah, well, I think he's fundamentally sound, and so when you talk about the footwork, I think it starts there with him. But then as you talk about an experienced player that sees the field really well, he understands defenses, he knows how to manipulate defenses. He's got a great feel for the game, and that translates to everything he does every single week. They're very much a premier play operation. They get into really good football plays against whatever defense that you're into, and that's a credit to the head coach and play caller, obviously, but also Matthew has a lot to do with that because he's got complete control of everything that's going on. And so it's no wonder that they're scoring so many points that they are right now.
College football season comes to a close on Monday night. Our visits with Paul Stone have been awesome each and every week. Coming to an end here in college football as well. Paul will join us after the break to give us a preview of the Miami-Indiana showdown next.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's been so great to have Paul Stone on with us each and every week, breaking down all the games in college football. And the great thing is that we always have a lot of games to discuss. But Paul, this is it. We got a championship on Monday night between Miami and Indiana, just how we drew it up at the beginning of the season. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, this is like out of nowhere, obviously, to have this game here. And so I guess I'll start with this. Not knowing what the line was going to be, I sort of, guessed these things. Like, and you make the line, so, I mean, you should know too. I am stunned that Indiana's 8.5-point favorites against Miami. I definitely thought that Indiana would be 4 or 5-point favorites. I thought less than a touchdown. And in total, by the way, 47.5 on FanDuel. What am I missing? Why am I so wrong on this? Miami, they may not win this game. They've played. Even when they lost those games to SMU and the bad games, they're still in every game this season. I must be just totally underestimating how good Indiana is.
I just think, really, Craig, it's just the way that Indiana has won, especially the last two games. I mean, beating Alabama 38-3 and then steamrolling Oregon from the jump last week in the semifinal. I just think they're the betting public's darling. And, this line, the look-ahead line before the semifinal games were played was Indiana -5.5 over Miami should that, championship game matchup come to fruition, which it obviously has. And then after the semifinal decisions, it reopened at Indiana -7.5. And then it's been bet up to 8.5 and even 9 at some stores. So the number has certainly got out of hand. It's not going to get to 10. I think the Sharks would pile on heavy and take a lot of hurricanes if that was the case. But it is that you certainly are paying some level of a tax on Indiana if you choose to take the Hoosiers this week.
So Indiana 15-0. I mean, crazy college football. We're playing 15 games here. They beat Oregon. They defeated Ohio State in a game where they were underdogs there. Some folks thought that they would get beat by Alabama. They did not. They crushed them, and then they took care of Oregon 56-22. Was there one or two wins among those, Paul, that sold you on the Hoosiers?
I'll tell you, the one that really sold me, last year I was kind of a doubting Thomas, admittedly, and I think when they stepped up in class last year, when they played at Ohio State in the regular season and then against Notre Dame in the playoff. I think it kind of showed that they weren't quite there yet. They were awfully close, but not quite there. And then coming into this season, I didn't really I thought they'd probably take a step back and thought they might even drop off at the quarterback position going to Cal transfer Fernando Mendoza, but that certainly had been the case. But to answer your question, the game that sold me is in early October when they went to Eugene, Oregon, to Alton Stadium. It's about I think a 7-point underdog, and beat Oregon 70-20, despite giving up a pick six. Only gave up one touchdown to Oregon's offense in the final three quarters, beat them 30-20 on their home turf. Nothing flukish about it. That was the game that sold me on Indiana, that this bunch of Hoosiers was for real and should not be taken lightly.
Meanwhile, the University of Miami, nobody was really sold on them at all this season. In fact, even the College Football Playoff Committee, very close to leaving them out to Notre Dame, who they beat. And of course, they got in. Thank goodness they did for their sake, because they have been awesome on defense throughout this college football playoff, including games that you were riding them against A&M and Ohio State. But last week, Paul, I know you thought maybe that it could come to an end against Ole Miss. And by the way, let's be honest, it probably should have. They did not play that well against Mississippi, but the timing of some of those big plays, and by the way, some penalties as well, really helped them out to get that win against the Rebels. For Miami, though, Paul, it does seem like, as far as we were discussing earlier, that win or lose, the games they play are all close.
Yeah, and I've got some information, point spread type information, and one of the elements that I was going to share today is just that, talking about close games. In lines, in games with the point spread that is single digits, whether Miami has been the favorite or the underdog this year, Miami is 7-0 against the spread. So that kind of supports your position there, that they have fared well in close games. And this is a team that the overall resume, certainly not as impressive as Indiana's, perhaps, because they have the two losses. They lost at home fairly early to Louisville, and then lost on November 1st to SMU in overtime, 26-20. And when they lose that game to SMU, I don't even know if it might be an overstatement to say that their playoff hopes were on life support. It might have been worse than that. They seem to be pretty much out of the playoff picture, but they really rebounded in grand fashion after that loss to SMU. The last four games of the regular season, they were quite impressive. And many people, felt Miami shouldn't have been in the playoff, that it should have been Notre Dame or perhaps Texas. And maybe that's the case. That's a fair argument. But, man, once given the chance, Miami has taken full advantage. You go to Texas A&M. Kyle Field is a difficult place to play. They get the victory there. Then they beat Ohio State on a neutral field, and of course did the same to Ole Miss in the semifinals. A game where they dropped some interceptions and had some other opportunities where they could have maybe gotten out in front by a little bit, but by the same measure, as you mentioned, Ole Miss could have won the game as well, a play here, a play there. But this is a well-tested team. I think it's going to be an exciting matchup, and I think some people might be selling Miami a little bit short here.
Yeah, and by the way, look, I mean, I've covered and been at all of the games that Miami has played up until this point in the last 20, 30 years of the national championship. Paul, I do believe this will be a home game for them. I understand that Indiana is going to travel very well for this, but the thing that folks, I guess, maybe don't realize about South Florida is that here in South Florida, Paul, we may not show up for the regular season, but when the playoffs come around, usually those fans do too. So I would expect at Hard Rock, at the very worst, to be 50-50, Miami and Indiana. That being said, I know that these are always tough games to handicap when you get to this stage of the season and the lines are tight. Do you have a lean on either the side, the total, or, if you don't mind, any props that you may like in this game as well?
Okay, well, I'll go. If you want to jump in at any point, just let me know. But I do certainly have a position on this game. And I look back to Kirk Cignetti after that Alabama game. Indiana had just throttled the Tide 38-3. And he answered a question in the post-game interview, and his response was, it'd be a hell of a movie. And I think it would. But using that line, I think the Hurricanes kind of feel like a extra in Indiana's movie. I think they're kind of being treated like an afterthought, that Indiana's kind of, it's a done deal and that sort of thing. And I just think that's misguided. This is a Miami team that's playing very good football right now. It's a team that's going to have perhaps up to 8 players picked in the NFL draft this April. And the one thing you can do to make life difficult on a big-time quarterback, and Fernando Mendoza is certainly that, is to disrupt them, to put pressure on them. And that's what Miami does best. They lead the nation in sacks with 47 sacks, 10.5 of those by Akeem Mesidor, 8.5 by Reuben Bain. So they can pressure the quarterback. And I think that'll certainly be to their advantage. They have faced 7 teams, has Miami this year, ranked in the AP top 25. Against those 7 teams, they are 7-0 straight up, 7-0 against the spread. They have covered all 3 games and won all 3 games when they've been the underdog this year against Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. So I like Miami. I recommend taking Miami plus 8.5 points for 60% of your unit, plus 290 on the money line on the other 40%. And then I'll throw in 2 props real quick. Malachi Toney under 5.5 receptions, minus 109. I think they'll try to neutralize him. Fernando Mendoza under 16.5 rushing yards.
Great stuff as always, Paul. Thanks again for coming on, and we will catch up soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we got another weekend of NFL football to go over, and it's Thursday, so it's time for us to dive a little deeper into some of these games, handicap them as well. Let's bring in Tom Vecchio for that. You can catch him this weekend here on SportsGrid as well. Tom, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. We've got, let's start off with the Sunday night game, and we've got the Rams and Bears. We'll start there. This is, I think, an intriguing one because a lot of points expected. 48.5 is the total. Bears have had trouble stopping people. The Rams, all of a sudden, are having trouble stopping people as well. They're 3.5-point favorites. I thought Rams shaky game for them Saturday against Carolina, but I also think they're probably a better team than the Bears. But the Bears seem to be playing with this Hollywood script. What ends up happening this Sunday?
I think the Rams win, but it's not going to be easy, to your point. And, you know, we should note that it's going to be bitterly cold there. There's a little bit of wind. There's a little bit of snow. It's not going to be anything that's major across the board for any one of those categories, but it's going to be a classic Soldier Field game for the Bears. You know, what I think happened for the Bears in that first game against the Packers was really just the fact that, you know, a rookie head coach in his first career playoff game, a young quarterback, you know, and they really learned through the first 3 quarters, and then they kind of remedied things in the fourth quarter. I will say, if they do that the same way against the Rams, I don't think the Rams let them come back. So even though Rams look shaky, the Rams have enough experience that if they do get up by 14 or 17 points, I think they will have that game comfortably. The Bears have to keep this game within arm's reach the entire time. They can't fall behind early, and we can't see Williams make as many mistakes as he did in the first game. He turned it around, but they got to limit that.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Rams still having problems on special teams. Meanwhile, all season long, it's been going on regardless of what coach they bring in. And last week, as Tom mentioned, the one team that did blow the lead against the Bears, that was the Packers, 18 points. It was the 5th largest comeback since 2000 in the NFL, seeing that massive comeback on Saturday night. The 49ers and the Seahawks know each other very well. In fact, they just played a couple of weeks ago. The 49ers were driving down the field, maybe potentially to stay in the game, tie, take the lead. It was Purdy, I believe, threw a ball to Christian McCaffrey, turns back, ball pops up, Seattle takes it, they win the game. It was that close. Odds makers are telling us this won't be. Seahawks -7, Tom. Total 44.5 in this game. A lot of folks thought that the 49ers are just too banged up to beat the Eagles. That was not the case. What happens this week?
It's a divisional matchup. It's the 3rd time they're playing this season. If this was a Thursday night game, I think a lot of people would be on the same page, and they would say, you know, just give me as many points as possible with the road team. Like, we just see this time and time again. You know, when it's all said and done, I think the talent is somewhat equivalent on both sides. We know that the 49ers lost George Kittle. We know that the Seahawks are coming off a bye, but you know, at the end of the day, is the coaching discrepancy something that we're going to see prevail in the side of the 49ers. We've seen Shanahan make the most out of the parts that he has, and they're kind of doing it all season. Like, it is the sum of the parts are better than the whole kind of situation where Robert Saleh's putting it all together. Like, they certainly don't have the talent. Fred Warner's back at practice after his ankle didn't look like it was going to stay on his foot a couple months ago, but he's back at practice. Whether he plays is yet to be seen. But if you give me a 7 with a road dog, especially in the divisional matchup playing for the 3rd time, I will take that every single time of the year.
Yeah, it feels like the 49ers could even win this game, honestly, going into the weekend. I feel the same way about this road team, too, even though they're a slight dog here. The Houston Texans, my gosh, get out of the way, Tom, of that defense. 2 touchdowns. I know one of them at the end of the game, but 2 touchdowns last week. And I understand that Pittsburgh's offense is not great. They made them look like a college team, I thought, in last week's game. The Patriots were better than Houston all season long, but this is like the one team that nobody, I don't think, wants to play. Total 41.5 in this game. Does Houston have enough offense to beat the Patriots? And what do you make of this spread? New England, -3.
They have enough offense if Nico Collins can play. And if Nico Collins plays, and even if he's not 100% and he's utilized in somewhat of a decoy role, I certainly think the Texans can get it done. And, you know, we really saw throughout the season, and everyone talked about it, the Pats, like, they had a really easy schedule. And that's the same thing that everyone has said. Like, they had a really, really easy strength of schedule. And they got to the playoffs, and they played a good team in the Chargers, certainly not a great team, and they struggled. This is by far the best defense that the Pats have really played at any point. So I certainly lean to the under. The numbers are already on the move down to 40.5. I'm obviously concerned about the offense from the Texans. If the Texans defense can come up with 1 score, their offense can come up with 1 score, and then they get field goal across the board, that might be enough for them to get the win.
Earlier in the week, Tom, when I was doing my little handicapping, I was saying that the same thing that happened last week is not going to happen this week. The Bills are not going to go from 1.5-point favorites in Jacksonville to Jacksonville being 1.5-point favorites. And this week I was like, nah, that can't happen. I was wrong. Happened again. Broncos have flipped the line. They're 1.5-point favorites against Buffalo. Total of 46.5. I got to say, Tom, I don't know who's going to win this game. I'm really surprised. I think money would honestly come in as the Bills being an underdog. So what am I missing in this matchup here?
You know, I was surprised to see the Broncos open as a dog. I took a small position on them with a bit of a teaser, them at the plus the points, and then with the 49ers taking them both up, just because it's a home team coming off a bye, and it's the home field advantage that the Broncos have is more than what we've seen or what we see from across the league, where home field certainly isn't as much as it was in previous years. There are a few select stadiums, Broncos and Mile High being one of them. So getting as many points as possible, the home team and the defense like the Broncos, that's where we're going to have to see. If the Bills are going to come away with a win, it's going to have to look a lot like last week where Josh Allen, of course, is being Superman. Khalil Shakir was unbelievable last week. But you look outside of that, James Cook was held in line. Every other receiver on the Bills were 2 catches here, 2 catches there, maybe 3 catches. So it's going to have to be a rising tide lifts all ships where everybody's chipping in just to do a little bit. I am concerned about the Broncos offense at a certain point because we've seen Bo passing offense struggle at times where if they can't get Cortland Sutton going and it's not Troy Franklin, it's going to be RJ Harvey out of the backfield. Again, these teams are somewhat similar where the quarterbacks have to do a lot of the work. And I think it's going to come down to the Bills' run defense. That will be the key focal point that's really going to swing this game.
Tom, before we go, big news today in the NFL. Looks like John Harbaugh, the Giants indeed, not letting him leave the building, I guess, so to speak. It feels like the money told the story, honestly, in this one more than anything else. The reports are he's going to be, I believe, top 3 paid head coach in the history of the NFL. If that is the case, are you surprised that Harbaugh picked the Giants?
I'm not. There's a lot of young talent there on offense. They have some good defensive pieces with the edge rushers. You fix the offensive line, you improve the defense. They could be a wild card team next year, not the upcoming season, the next season.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great rest of your week.
Same to you.
We'll be right back.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
OK Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not gonna happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we continue on here with the show, we check back in at the G2E conference back in October. Hillary McAfee is set to interview the head of Treasury Management at Western Alliance, James Thomas. For those of you unfamiliar, James very prominent, not just in the banking space, but also the financial space as it pertains to people getting paid when they're betting on sports. Here is Hillary.
Welcome back to SportsGrid on the floor at G2E. I'm here with James Thomas, who is the head of Treasury Management at Western Alliance. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, what's the show like for you? What are
The
your goals for you
excitement
here?
is awesome. I mean, you come in here and everyone's doing deals and new games every year, and it's exciting. So it's exciting to be here. This is our probably 10th year that I've been coming, so it's pretty fun.
Okay, so you're an OG. You've been coming for a while.
I am.
You know. What's like something you would tell a beginner G2E attendee?
My favorite part is seeing the new games come out. So the small manufacturers that are probably doing, $5-10 million in revenue, that have like a game or two that are catching on, and those are fun to watch over the years. They go from like a small booth to a bigger booth to not the IGT or Light and Wonder booth, but they get up to the bigger games. So that's fun, and then you get to know some of those people, and it's exciting for them to grow their business.
Yeah.
And we're kind of along the ride.
Yeah, so what does Western Alliance have to do with the gaming space?
So we were actually founded by Bill Boyd 30 years ago. He wrote an $8 million check to start our bank because he didn't feel like the gaming space was getting treated fairly by banks. So it's kind of in our DNA. So we were founded 30 years ago to service the Vegas market. We're now the 18th largest commercial bank in the country, and gaming's been in our DNA. We love the space because it's extremely progressive. We learn, obviously about cash management back in the day, but now the digital wallets, when you look at, kind of online betting for sports, we see those digital wallets and how exciting those are, kind of how we can play in with the KYC that's needed from a banking standpoint, and just like the functionality. Can we move the wallet into the brick and mortar space and then move it back into kind of the sports betting and stuff like that? So we've been at the forefront of that. We'll continue to be at the forefront of that and see how that kind of transpires.
Yeah. So you do obviously gaming, and then you're getting into sports as well. Are you've always been in sports?
Yeah, well, Circa. So obviously Derek Stevens is a great friend of the bank, and Circa Sports, we're supportive there.
Okay.
I'm so excited to see what he's doing there. That's the app I use, so I'm supportive of that. That's okay.
Nice.
I can say
That's
that
okay.
here. Okay. But I'll use them all. Depends on the sign-up bonus. Just kidding. We are supportive there, but really, Marianne is our largest shareholder of the bank. She's Bill Boyd's daughter. They did an investment in DraftKings, so they've been supportive of the space, and we've kind of been along for the ride.
Yeah. And you guys have had a pretty transformative couple years at Western Alliance, right? You've been growing exponentially. We've
been lucky. I mean, we went from a $20 billion bank 5 years ago to a $90 billion bank, and that's all organic growth. And a lot is just picking the right segments. You think gaming, people thought it was going to struggle through COVID, and it kind of roared. We're in Nevada, Arizona, California is our main footprints, and we just, real estate's been really strong out here. Development's been strong, and our banks just benefited from that growth.
Yeah.
We like the high-risk verticals. So like I said, it was founded by Bill Boyd. We're large in gaming. We're large in MRB, cannabis, cryptocurrency. High risk is in our DNA. So we fit in well here.
This is where you need to be. That makes sense.
It is.
Yeah. So what would you say to people if they're asking you, what's kind of like, what's down the pipeline for the next year? If you had like a crystal ball, what would you tell them? From an investment standpoint, we're watching closely with the IGT and Every merger. So that's going to be interesting how that shakes up. We've seen when large companies in the gaming space merge, they don't necessarily A plus B equals C. It's kind of like A plus B equals A and a half. And so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I know we'll probably see that in the sports betting space. There's going to be consolidation. When you have a new market, the first 10 years, everyone thinks they're going to be the consolidator, and that doesn't usually always happen. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, James.
Thanks so much for having me, Joy.
it's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not gonna happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Time to break down one of the NFL matchups coming up this weekend, and man, it is a big one. The Buffalo Bills travel to Denver to take on the Broncos. ABC in Buffalo's Dan Fates is with us. He's on the road with the Bills, so to speak. It's another road trip coming for him this week as they get ready to prepare for what probably ends up being the most compelling matchup, I think, amongst all the games left in the NFL playoffs, because the Bills, Dan, certainly are chasing down that Super Bowl, or at least getting to the Super Bowl. I think that would be the point here, Dan. All right, so let's reset real quick to the game in Jacksonville. I thought we were looking at two elite teams in the AFC there. Still felt like the team that won that game has the inside track to the Super Bowl. But certainly Josh Allen put that Superman coat on yet again and finished off the Jaguars late in the game. What a game it was. It battled to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh Allen deserves a ton of that credit, obviously, because I went into this game thinking that the Bills would still be able to run the ball as the number one rushing offense against the number one rushing defense. And that just wasn't the case. I thought James Cook had to run for 100 yards for the Bills to have success in that game, and they didn't. And instead, Josh just said, I'll just do it all on my own. And the big thing for me, Craig, is that when Josh talked before this game, before the Jacksonville game, he said in week 18, he didn't play. He took the one snap to extend his consecutive start streaks, but he said he spent pretty much that entire week self-scouting. And he said he went back and looked at some of the film from this year, and he said, I stink. And he goes, look at all the things I left on the table. Look at all of the times I put my team in a bad spot of taking a sack or trying to extend a play. And he goes, there were so many times where I said, there's 5 yards there, there's 6 yards there. And that's what we saw. Like Jacksonville, like the Bills do not have elite wide receivers by any means. I'd argue they have one of the worst 5 receiving rooms in the NFL this season. But when Josh is that disciplined, that's the big thing that has turned Josh from, you know, that really elite talent to that next level surgeon, is when he's taking what the defense is giving him. And he saw him doing that, 12 passes to Khalil Shakir. None of them were really groundbreaking throws, but they were taking what the defense is giving him, and that allows the Bills offense to be efficient.
Yeah, it certainly showed that they can use Shakir a lot more. I thought that would be the plan, by the way, this season, and there's been little spurts like we saw this past weekend of them giving him the ball, and you see there he had 12 receptions for 82 yards, but a lot more targets, 9 different players with a pass catch in that game. And so My takeaway, Dan, sort of on Buffalo was very similar, and I don't. You obviously probably feel differently about this, but I looked at the Bills similar to the Ravens and similar to the Chiefs in the sense that they all three had down seasons. All three of them were the favorites to go to the Super Bowl. The Bills have played the best football of the three. They played good enough to beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville. I don't know that they have to play any better, by the way, to beat Denver in Denver. But is there a stark difference from Bills teams of the past and this season? Because squeaking by in a playoff game is not going to work, say, 3-4 times in a row.
Yeah, this is, and that's why this national narrative that it's the Bills, opportunity and Josh Allen's opportunity to go to the Super Bowl because there's no Burrow, no Lamar, and no Patrick Mahomes is just kind of crazy to us that have been following the team so closely this year. And I understand, look, if you look at the EPA and you look at points per game and all of this stuff, it may feel to the eyes, if you're looking at numbers, that this is just another Bills typical Josh Allen offense that we've become accustomed to seeing over the last 4 years, this offensive juggernaut. It hasn't been the case. This team, most of this season has been a slog, a grind offensively to pick up first downs. 3rd and 7 for most of the season has been a death sentence to this offense because they don't have receivers that can get open, and Josh has taken way more sacks because of that. Josh and Sean McDermott have both admitted that at times he feels like he's pressing because the offense doesn't have those easy buttons. He doesn't have the Stephon Diggs anymore or a Cole Beasley. I'd argue that this is one of the worst offenses that Josh has had since 2020, 2019. Like, this is a makeshift offensive line. So now I had my concerns going into this postseason because of that, because you're going to need to throw the ball in games. But when you have Josh Allen, it makes up for a lot of deficiencies. So when you talk about their margin for error, I think the Bills are 0-4 or 0-5 this year when they don't score 23 points. That's the bar that the Bills offense has to be. And look, Greg, this defense is not elite, but they're not as bad as people think they are, and they're starting to find ways. They have their flaws. They struggle against the run. But you want to know what Sean McDermott has always been like? It has always been, but don't break. It's, okay, you guys can average Jacksonville 7 yards a run. Don't care. We'll force a turnover, and we'll make you be in 3rd and longs if we have to, and then we'll confuse you. Sean McDermott's defense isn't getting enough credit for what this team has been able to accomplish this year because the offense, while the numbers may say something different, they have not been as explosive.
Yeah, and not a way to live to count on turnovers, without a doubt. Trey White came up. So big, by the way, for the team last week. Good guy, Trey White of the Buffalo Bills. So you mentioned that bar, and that's a really, I think, intriguing number that you brought up, because I think that the way the Denver Broncos look at this is that they generally don't give up 23 points in football games this season, Dan. As you know, like, they've been living on defense. At the beginning of the season, it looked like Bo Nix was going to be, I don't know, top 5, top 10 quarterback. And it's a Sean Payton offense, but that completely has gone the other way. It's been the defense carrying them, winning a lot of the close games that they lost probably a year ago. So maybe it's simply just that easy. If the Bills put up 25, 30 points, they beat Denver, and anything less is a loss. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. The interesting matchup to me is the Jags defensive line was massive. They're a big defensive line with Trayvon Walker and Eric Armstead and all those guys and Josh Hines-Allen. Denver's defensive line is not nearly as big. And something over the last 5 or 6 weeks, they're 23rd against the run in EPA. I think the Bills can have a lot more success running the ball, and they will need to, because as of the moment, as we're talking here, the Bills pretty much have 3 healthy wide receivers on their roster. Gabe Davis and Tyrell Shavers both tore their ACLs in that game against Jacksonville. They're going to try and piece this wide receiver room, which I'd already said has been one of the worst in the league, in my opinion. Now they're down to Brandon Cooks, who joined the team in week 13, Khalil Shakir, which we have mentioned, who's been outstanding as usual. And then you have Keon Coleman, who has been a healthy scratch and benched for 4 games this season. They're going to try and piece this together. They love their tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox and all those guys. But I think for them to be successful this year, more than this week, more than last week, they're going to have to run the ball because they just literally don't have the bodies to throw it as well.
Yeah, and I know Josh Allen has trusted Ty Johnson in the past too, out of the backfield too, to throw the ball also, and he has been hurt as well for the Bills. So they're favored this week, by the way, slight favorite going into Denver. Dan, as we close it out, I'd be remiss if I did not mention that the Bills played their final game at Highmark Stadium a couple of weeks ago, a place with with some of the legendary showdowns in the history of the NFL, some crazy comebacks, by the way. I'll never forget that comeback that they had in the playoffs many years ago as well. Is the expectation that, and I'm wondering about this, regardless of how the Bills end up, is the expectation maybe that they open up the season at home, prime time on a Thursday night or a Sunday night? I can't imagine having it any other way. After all, anytime the league opens up a new stadium, I think we're headed toward that, no?
Yeah, the league has opened up a lot of new stadiums in week 2. That's something that we've monitored kind of closely. They seem to, the week 1 automatically has the buzz. So it's like they kind of hold that week 2 to open the new stadium. So that's something that we've been monitoring. The fans deserve it, Craig, like you were talking about. Like, everybody loves Highmark Stadium or the Ralph or, whatever you called it as a Bills fan. But the fans deserve a new, shiny new stadium, and it's right across the street. Tailgate won't change. Your drive to the game won't change at all. And it really will be, and kind of is, the stadium that Josh Allen built.
Yeah, no question. All right, Dan. Well, have a safe trip to Denver, and we'll see what happens this week with the Bills and the Broncos. Should be a compelling game. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back with more after this. Don't go away.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
And welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Monday night national championship game in South Florida. Joining us now to discuss it is former great at the University of Miami running back Duke Johnson, also great in the NFL. Maybe we have time. Maybe we get into the Browns here a little bit at the end. But first, let's bring Duke in. Duke, thanks for coming on the show here. And look, you played at a very high level at UM on a lot of teams that I'm sure when you played, you thought that, wow, the U is going to get back to the national championship. It took a really long time, but here we are Monday night, and this must be a fun run for you to be able to watch them go through this.
Oh, definitely a fun run. Like you said, compared to the teams that we had, we thought we had the talent, but didn't really, put it all together the way this team was able to do this year. And it's a big credit to Coach Christian Paul and his staff, just being able to get the guys to play for each other and play game in and game out, especially down this stretch, this playoff stretch. We just need to do it one more time.
So how did Duke, how did they get here, you think, the University of Miami? I think, look, we watched a lot of what transpired where they were, in all likelihood, it looked like maybe they were going to get left out of the college football playoff. It definitely seemed like they took that personally. The defense has really gone to the next level here, and then a lot of the offensive players are really putting up their best performances over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think you said it. I think it's playing well when you need to, and I think down the stretch, we played really well. We had some tough losses, November-ish, but when it mattered, we put our best football on tape, and now we're in the national championship. I think the defense played great, really, all year. The offense had some ups and downs, but I think we only go as far as the defense takes us. Defense plays well, offense kind of complements them, and we have a chance to win every game.
Yeah, and that's what's happened, really. The defense has come up strong. Even in the game last week, just needed one big stop and ended up getting it. Let's talk about your position and as it relates, your former position, as it relates to University of Miami. The running game has really also come alive. What have you seen there from the running backs and the offensive line?
A lot of it is scheme in the way that they coach and teach the guys to kind of be on one accord. You see a lot of times, even when there's not big gaping holes there, the running back does a great job putting the ball where it's supposed to go, and then you have the offensive lineman pushing and driving and showing that extra effort to fall forward for an extra 3-4 yards. So I think it's a combination of just the guys playing hard for one another, as well as just a great scheme.
Now, when you were at Miami, you played with a number of different quarterbacks. It felt like every quarterback that came in was going to be the next one, and then it was the next one, and then it was the next one. In this new day and age of college football, I'm sure you missed out on some dough there too, Duke. But in this day and age of college football, Carson Beck, he comes in. He had a good season. I think that's fair, but he's really come up big in the big moments when they've needed him. Maybe the stats don't really indicate a great run in the postseason, but it feels like every time they've needed a big play, he's come through.
Yeah, and to your point, I think that's why you bring in the Carson Beck. You don't bring him in for games early on where we can just win the ball just off of talent and not really needing him to play his best game. You bring him in for these games, for these big games, for the big moments. And the biggest thing for him is making the throws, making the easy throws, making the throws on time, not turning the ball over, protecting the ball, and surprisingly something he's been doing well is running, using his legs to convert first downs, to move the sticks. He made a couple of big plays, especially in the Ohio State game, 3rd and 12, where he was able to tuck the ball and run and convert. So I think he's doing it all. Doing a great job commanding the offense, getting guys in the right formation and right play. But most of all, not turning the ball over and allowing his guys to make plays.
So, Duke, let's take a quick look at the other side of this because look, it's very rare and sort of shocking, honestly, for me, and I'm sure for you, who's played college football, NFL, watched a long time, to see Indiana having this kind of success. And at this point, nobody should be surprised if they do beat the University of Miami on Monday night. And, certainly a lot of it is the quarterback and the coach. A lot of discussions about Cignetti and certainly the Heisman Trophy Award winner, Fernando Mendoza, and does it kind of, Duke, in a different way, just super efficient, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They don't seem to take a ton of deep chances, but every time at the end of the game, you look up and see Mendoza's numbers, it's like 15 for 18, 20 for 22, 12 for 14. I mean, how does a quarterback like this win the Heisman Trophy Award and get out of this thing without throwing 400 or 500 yards a game? It's just a lot of efficiency.
Yeah, like you said, he's very efficient. He's gonna take what the defense give him. You play off coverage, you play soft coverage. He's gonna kill you throwing the ball, checking the ball down, throwing quick out routes, throwing quick hitches. Uh, but he also does a great job at throwing back shoulders and throwing go balls. So even when you're in a great position as a defense, he can throw a ball and kind of make your defense irrelevant. So they always say, great throws beat better defense, or better throw beat great defense, and he does a great job at that. His guys just make plays for him. They catch the ball. They don't have too many drops, like you said. They don't make too many mistakes. We got to get to him. Bain and this front seven and front five have to get to him and kind of get constant pressure on him to kind of make him uncomfortable, and just try your best to make him uncomfortable and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, no one has done that basically all year long. Even Ohio State could not beat this guy. But we'll see what happens on Monday night in the national championship game. All right, so Duke, obviously you're going to take Miami here to win the championship, but what do you think the final score will be in the game, Hard Rock Stadium, Monday night?
Ooh, final score. Let's go. Let's go 30. Let's go 31. Let's go 31-17.
31-17 Miami on Monday night. All right, Duke. Well, listen, enjoy the game on Monday night. Congrats to your Hurricanes for just getting this far to the national championship game. And I know you and I will catch up again soon. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Duke Johnson, former great in both college and pro football. I'm sure he's paying close attention also to his Cleveland Browns and see what they do. But I feel like it is honestly, with all due respect, the same sort of story with the Browns every year. We could bring Duke back next time when they hire their next head coach. All right, we got to take a quick time out. More to come here on this edition of NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. At his press conference this afternoon, Alex Bregman, now of the Chicago Cubs, said that he will be playing for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. There's another surprise player that's going to be playing on it as well. We'll tell you who. Also give you the first look at the new Washington Commanders Stadium. And a surprise shows up in a new trading card edition, a player who never played baseball but apparently did a commercial about one. Time now for some last licks. Well, this was a bit of a surprise, I gotta say. Clayton Kershaw, who after the World Series announced that he was retiring from Major League Baseball after an illustrious Hall of Fame career, I guess is not done after all. No, he's not going back to play, I don't think, for the Dodgers next season, but he has committed to pitch for Team USA at the upcoming World Baseball Classic. Now, I'm not really sure exactly how Kershaw will be used because naturally he was coming out of the bullpen for the Dodgers at this late stage of his career. Maybe the same will be said for Team USA as they sort of wrap up picking up their roster. The World Baseball Classic is coming up in March, and apparently one of the best to ever do it, Clayton Kershaw, will be part of the team. So extending out his retirement and farewell party, he will do it coming up in March. Clayton Kershaw commits to play for Team USA at the World Baseball Classic. Okay, so talk about a futuristic stadium. The Washington Commanders, formerly known as, the Washington Redskins, their stadium is honestly not that old. It's not the old RFK Stadium. They moved into a new stadium about 20 years ago, and that stadium is now old. And so they've decided to build a new stadium for the Commanders, and we got some, at least little, I think, indications as to what this could look like. Some artist renderings, as they say. Those were posted on social media earlier today, and we got our first look at it. And honestly, it looks a little bit like it belongs in Washington, D.C. My first thought in looking at the stadium, not only being modern, but also looks a little bit like the White House. That's kind of what I thought, at least initially. Now, naturally, this is not going to be ready for a long time. Anytime the renderings come out, that's the first step. And then you're still looking at a minimum of 3 years away from this thing being built. So, and they haven't even broken ground yet. So, Commanders getting a new stadium. For those of you who go online, you can find it. It looks pretty cool. I will say this, any stadium that's being built, baseball or football, without a roof on it, or at least a retractable one, I think you're making a big mistake with this day and age of weather and the way things go. I can't imagine. I know Buffalo's going to be open-ended too, but I guess Washington's going to follow suit. Really good job, by the way. It looks awesome. They'll be open in several years. Okay, finally, for those of you who are into sports trading cards, you may know that a new release is coming out, but what in the world is that picture that we're showing right there? That right there is the iconic picture that Bo Jackson posed for in trading cards many, many years ago. Remember, he was a two-sport athlete. Well, Bowman Chrome came up with this unique idea to have Dan Marino in a Kansas City Royals jersey that is in the new edition, I mean, where they come up with this, I have no idea, of Bowman Chrome baseball. Naturally, Dan Marino never played professional baseball. There was some thought that maybe he would when he was at Pittsburgh. Ended up playing for the Dolphins and having a great career. So basically what happened was they released a commercial, and that image is just part of this idea that Marino knows, very similar to Bo Jackson. Bo knows, except for, as it turns out, I'm going to ruin it for you, so spoiler alert in this 30-second YouTube clip, it was all a dream, and Marino wakes up and he's still in South Florida. But the cards do exist, and if you buy the new 2025 edition of Bowman Chrome, or 26th edition, excuse me, of Bowman Chrome, you can get yourself a Dan Marino Kansas City Royals card. Did not see that one coming here in 2026, but here we are. All right, that will do it for our show today. I want to thank our guests who always appear on the program. Thanks to Gilbert McGregor from Phoenix Sports. Thanks to Paul Stone, Tom Vecchio, Dan Fates, and also thanks to Duke Johnson as he gets ready for the big game coming up on Monday night. Also, we are 30 minutes away from an NBA game in Berlin. The Orlando Magic are taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, and right now FanDuel has this one as Orlando -5, total of 229.5. You almost never see an NBA game during the week being played during the day, although I will say coming up on Monday, on Martin Luther King Day, we're going to have tons of NBA games going on during the day too. All right, so that's coming up at 2. I'm out of here for the day. Thanks again to our director, Luke, for my producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. We'll be back with our next edition of NewsWire on Friday, getting you ready for the big football weekend. Until then, enjoy the rest of the programming here on SportsGrid and have a great rest of your night. See you tomorrow, noon Eastern, here on NewsWire.